Hello, my fellow middle class Indians. I've been talking to you from time to time, and thank you for listening to what I have to say. I hope you've been going out and voting, and I hope that those of you who have not yet registered, especially in places like Delhi, do register to vote. I wanted to talk to you about, one of these middle class heroes who have always spent their entire career actually arguing for, free market reform in India, and they use words like competition and investment and growth and the pie growing and all of that. And he was interviewed recently by Karan Thapar. The interview is available on YouTube, and I would like you to watch it, and I would like you to see. I'm trying to look for polite words over here. How bereft of any sense of reality about India, of a total lack of responsibility. Yes, even more important, a total lack of responsibility for the things that India needs just to survive as a democracy and as a relatively liberal society. The lack of responsibility in the things that Dr. Surjit Bhalla was saying, and it's particularly shocking and painful to hear him, because this is not what you expect from educated people. And he's a well-educated person. Educated people, middle class people like us in any society, but particularly in a country like India, which has a lot of disparity, which is still a young democracy, which is still trying to, make sense of itself. We have a responsibility to keep the boat steady. And at a moment like this, for someone like Surjit Bhalla to take the position that he has is a complete dereliction of duty. And it's not just him. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the middle class is still in the same position. But what I want you to do is to listen to Surjit Bhalla, who's who says the kinds of things that you feel are what India needs to hear and listen to, and see how incoherent and irrelevant he sounds. And it would just be comedy, except that this is a moment when educated people who care about India really need to rally together. To steady the boat. And I purposely use the expression steadying the boat, because what I mean by this is not, bringing about some great revolution in the country. I'm talking about simply, preserving the basic framework that is needed for us to continue as a country in any recognizable shape or form. And, that requires that our politicians come from the democratic process, belong to it, and fight within its terms. And the other thing is that our social fabric needs to remain intact. It needs to remain intact, and it is within within the parameters for the preservation of our society as a society, that all the other arguments can take place about whether we have to be more liberalized in our economy or less liberalized, whether we have to have a big state or a small state, what kind of welfare measures we have. All of these have to happen in the context that none of these arguments are important enough for our social fabric to just be rent. And I hope you've been following what's been going on in the election so far. There have been just shocking cases in Indore, in Surat, in Odisha, of Congress candidates and opposition candidates suddenly just caving before the BJP even before the election. And it's very clear that they're coming under some kind of enormous pressure in doing this. And, you know, in Surat, where at the last minute these candidates all disappeared, they were not some small-time activist or something. They were all very well-off, wealthy businessmen. You know, and so the BJP is even able to reach that kind of person who has that kind of standing and resources in society. And why it is doing this when, you know, I mean, it's widely agreed. It's not like they are losing the election as a certainty or anything like this. If anything, they have the upper hand. And why they are displaying this brute force, you know, except to scare people. And the reason they are doing this is that, you know, people have got scared. They are finding that scaring people is working for them, and that's why they're doing this. And, you know, democracy doesn't work on the principle of the public being scared. So, and, you know, I mean, the blatant, you talk about the middle class will say that Yogi Adityanath made a great CM, makes a great CM for Uttar Pradesh because he's brought down criminality. You know, he's putting people in jail who die in jail, who themselves and who their relatives from weeks before this, their deaths claim that they believe that they are being poisoned. Ajit Doval, the head of our national security, is in charge of a national security apparatus and a spy network which has clearly been involved in killing people abroad. This is criminal behavior. Wake up. You know, you're talking about how it's difficult to drive through the UP Badlands and all. Listen, all you guys sitting there cursing India and cursing the Congress and all the other opposition parties in your comfortable hangouts in New York, in London, in Sydney. It's not possible to walk on certain streets in these cities because they are so dangerous and so violent. Okay? We are hearing of our students being killed by hooligans there, and police driving too fast and then laughing, you know, when they see the body flying over their cars. All right, so that kind of criminal element exists everywhere, even in those places which you think are models for India. But this what they're doing, you know, using what is supposed to be a sacred democratic process and all our institutions to road roll an election, that's real criminality that actually endangers our nation. Okay, but let's come back to, you know, what Surjit Bhalla is saying. Apparently he's written a book, okay, which, to be fair, I suppose he wrote it before the election campaign got heated and things reached the lowest of the low, with the Prime Minister's remarks about Mangal Sutras being taken and wealth being given to those who have more children. He's number 6 in his family. And also Surjit Bhalla has written this book in which he talks about how the data tells you that the way Indians vote has to do with whether the Prime Minister is aspirational and appeals to modernity, and that whatever you see in terms of price rise or income inequality and so on and so forth doesn't have any meaning for them. Okay, so, you know, I mean, you know, it's very easy actually to take an outrageous position defending an absolutely outrageous and scandalous and shameful Prime Minister, not by saying that you believe that he should be voted back, but saying that, oh well, you know, this is why this is the public in India believes that you know, this is the right guy to vote for. And Karan Thapar managed to put him on the spot on that and say, well, tell me what you think. And he kept going round and round in circles. And you should have seen the kinds of answers that he was giving. You should have seen the kinds of answers that he was giving. You know, I mean, on price rise and unemployment, he says that, well, I think it's fine, because the reason why you have horse races is that everybody has a different idea on which horse is going to win. And I've studied in the US, so I can tell immediately that this is exactly the sort of, glib little line that your economics 101, they in America everything is like 101 and whatever it is, so that your economics 101 professor in your liberal arts program in your first year would tell you, the reason why we have a horse race is because everybody has a different opinion on which horse is going to win. This is bullshit. These are just rhetorical embellishments. It's not an answer to the urgent questions that face the nation. And these are the types of people that you feel are economists that weren't given a chance in India. Okay, and the guy speaks in this phony American accent. All of these people are trained in America. You have this guy, Arvind Panagria, who's been given a seat by somebody who's basically his ideological crony in Princeton. And the kinds of things that he says over here, that don't make any sense in the context of a country like India. That everybody is a socialist and there's all this redistribution going on. What redistribution? I mean, the whole idea of redistribution is talked about in the States in the context of the middle class, the real, like middle class, middle income earners. And whether the money that should go into colossal welfare programs that they have over there. There is no comparison between what is done as social benefits in the first world and what is done in India. And the scale at which it operates. I mean, it is a big industry there and there's valid criticisms to be made. But we are a very, very, very far cry from there. And let me tell you that one of the bedrock of these conservative economic arguments which are made in America, the absolutely non-negotiable bedrock for this is liberal democracy. Liberal democracy, which is exactly what is being attacked and undermined and torn to shreds over here by the two dangerous thugs that we have in power. And for someone like, Dr. Surjit Bhalla to have deluded himself enough to just turn a blind eye and all of that and grab like a drowning man at the passing log of this, metaphor that his economics 101 professor gave him it's just inexcusable. It's inexcusable in someone who has the title doctor before his name. It's inexcusable. And at the same time as you have Arvind Panagria and Dr. Surjit Bhalla spouting this absolute bitch. And let me tell you, okay, I am neither a communist nor really a socialist. Okay, I believe in a compassionate society. And, people who are poor and destitute need help. I believe in giving. Okay, but I don't believe in a big welfare state. I believe in the free market. I've seen the benefits of the free market. I'm a child of the free market. We liberalized in 1991, just as I was becoming a young adult. And I've seen, everything. I've seen the opportunities it gives. I've seen all the good things that it gives. Okay. And I'm also not, I don't necessarily believe that, that income inequality, indicates a society that is not being compassionate and taking everyone along. I mean, a lot of these guys, they need to see what it takes to run a business before they start talking about 1% here and 90% there. Fine. But, it's absolutely absurd. The kinds of things that these economic consultants, all trained in America, are saying over here. They couldn't get away with saying it, in America. You think that people in inner cities, Chicago and other places are going to accept this kind of, you're talking, when you talk about these things, income inequality or whatever, poverty, unemployment, you're talking about the burden on families from rising prices. You're talking about something that affects, real people every single day. People who don't have much in the first place and have to work much harder than you, Dr. Surjit Bhalla, much harder to even be just minimally physically comfortable and healthy and happy. And this arrogant dismissal. You have the government's chief economic advisor just 6 weeks ago saying, well, I don't know what the government can do about unemployment, I mean, what can we do? Just hire more and more people in government? How can you have this kind of response? How can you have this kind of response? And you know what? I'll tell you something, middle class India, that, if you're going to be this callous and disconnected to the masses who vote, and ultimately whose vote decides who's going to be in power, then you're only going to have thugs, and it's going to be worse and worse for you. The only thing that we get, we don't need government, right? As middle class, we don't need government. We are able to buy whatever we need to fulfill our needs and wants in society. The only thing that we need from government is for it to be democratic. And that's the thing which is now being snatched away. Because you don't have any understanding. And you made heroes of guys like this. He should have been laughed out of the place in the first. And then the conversation moves on to secularism. Because he says in his book that Modi has moved India to a truer and better version of secularism. Even Modi's mother, were she to be alive today, would not claim that he is upholding any version of secularism. How can he defend this? At what point does it stop? And, if he finds that, he's not in a position to criticize the government, then he should have at least kept quiet. There was no reason for him to come on this interview. And the arrogance of the man, he keeps on trying to get away with these dumb answers for almost half an hour over and over again. He's got no shame, no ability to look at what he's saying. And these are the kinds of people that the middle class has been holding up to criticize everything that happened in the last 75 years in India. Are you crazy? You can't allow this to happen to India. Read a little history. It wasn't just the big names that you know of who went to jail or who died. If you actually start reading it, everyday people died. Everyday people died. They gave their blood for freedom, for self-rule. That's what it used to be called. Self-rule. Is there self-rule? Where opposition candidates are not even being allowed to stand? They're being pressured to withdraw before the vote happens? Is it self-rule when you have chief ministers being thrown in jail? Opposition chief ministers? We are at a very, very dangerous point in our country, and I hope that the rest of you are not in this supine state of self-induced hypnosis of people like Dr. Surjit Bhalla. Watch our interview of his.